Welcome back, everybody. Another episode of Talk Openly. My name's Jack, and I'm here with my wonderful Dharma friend, Daniel. And I'm tuning in from Port Hadlock, Washington. And Daniel, I know, is in Sacramento, where we've got Lions for our Dharma centers. So welcome back, everybody. Nice to see you, wherever you're coming from.
Hi, Jack. Hi, everybody out there in Talk Openly land. I'm happy to be here on another edition of Talk Openly.
Yeah. Yeah, and Daniel, I'm I haven't had much time to think about this topic, but of apathy that we're going to be talking about later tonight. But um, I can see where this is a consistent guest for me.
Oh, what are
Apathy.
you saying? There's like some kind of there's like a rhythm or a pattern here. We talked about
Yeah.
doubt and we talked about boredom, and now we're talking about apathy. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, it is interesting. Yes. Okay. What
Who
is
is
this?
spearheading all of this?
Well, and that's one of the interesting things. It's like being on the path um with your Dharma buddies. It's like we're gonna go through the same things. We're I heard Lama say recently, that human beings were remarkably similar. And of course, we're all our own unique individuals and are coming to the path with all of our unique backgrounds and experiences. But ultimately, we're going to experience very similar things on the path. And, all of us want happiness and liberation. And we're all experiencing confusion and doubt and all the things. So it's no wonder that
Absolutely.
we're having some similar difficult experiences.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's oftentimes lost because we observe we tend to focus on our differences.
Yeah.
Um, but really, fundamentally, we're so much closer to each other and more alike each other than not just you and I, but
Yeah.
everybody, right?
Everybody.
Than we make it out to be. We're so similar that we're desperate for differences. Something to make us stand out somehow or
Yeah.
other. And that's been one of the hardest things for me, Jack. I really admit it, man. I always, my whole life, I've wanted to be something special, something, extraordinary and unique and all of that. And while there's some, sure, maybe there's some truth that's true to some extent. The part that I was experiencing a lot of aversion to was how I'm the same as everyone else, right? And
Yeah.
that is, it's, oh my God, every time that I have these experiences where I'll find myself in certain places, like, I don't know, maybe like at a particular store or something, and I'm like super judgy. I'm like, "Ugh, look at all these people, like, yeah, well, yeah, like they're so consumeristic or whatever." I'm doing my little, doing my little thing, and then I'm like, wait, I'm here.
I'm
You
here.
know,
Yeah. Yeah. How did I get here?
I'm
Well,
different. I'm not like them, right?
right. Yeah. No, every time I walk through Costco, there's a
Yeah.
little bit
Yeah.
of that. I'm better. I'm better. I'm better
I'm
than
here for
I'm
different
better.
reasons, you see.
Right. When really the reason I'm there is toilet paper.
Right.
I'm getting toilet paper and I'm getting peanut butter. It's like all the same stuff as everybody else. So, I'm no
Yep.
better, no worse uh,
Yeah.
than anyone out there. I mean, I might be
Uh,
trying a little bit hard to recycle more or use less gas, but ultimately.
yeah, and in those things, the essential things that the things that are so human, like the majority of our needs and wants and deep desires and all of that is we really actually want, many of us, the exact same thing. In fact, it could be argued we all want the exact same thing, but that we just don't quite know how to do it. There's some things in the way
Yep.
that sort of obscure our ability to make things happen the way we wish they were.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I
Yeah, we
actually
all
saw
want
an
to
interest.
be,
Sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just saying, we all want to be happy.
We all want to be happy, and that's not just human, right? I went to a last night I went to a bat I don't know, like a bat experience. I don't know how to explain it. It's over in Davis. The causeway between
Yeah.
Davis, California and Sacramento, it has is this huge bridge thing, right? And there's a ton of bats that live in
Yeah.
there. And the YOLO Basin group has this, they like invite people to come out and they give like a lecture and give us some understanding about bats, and then we go out and look at the bats and watch them all fly away. And it was really interesting that one of the points that they were making, they showed the sort of the evolutionary tree, and they're like, basically humans are more closely related um, to mice than they are to bats. That bats
Whoa.
are more like cats. They're more on that end of the spectrum. And so they are quite different than bats. But deep down inside, even those bats have the same, they want to be close with other bats. They want to
Huh.
they want to be comfortable, they want to be safe. And it was wild too. These bats are taking off, and there were peregrine falcons coming in and eating them. And
Whoa.
so like they're all like, and that falcon wants to be content and happy, right?
Yeah.
It's fascinating, right? So these some of these things aren't even human.
Yeah. No, very much so.
Look at
Yeah.
this I got some
Oh
lighting on my
yeah.
chin. Look at
You got
this.
some
I
glow.
don't know what. Oh, I see. The sunlight's coming in and bouncing back and lighting up my chin. Isn't that
It's
nice?
nice. It's nice. Well, yeah, so I want to hear a little bit about your practice, I'm hearing about bats and that sounds really cool. Um yeah, honestly. And I think it's great when we can too like go to something like that and be like, "Oh yeah, Dharma," you know?
Mm.
And always bring it back. But yeah, how's your training? What's going on?
It's good, man. Especially with my meditation practice, it's really settling back down into more of a consistent, regular daily routine. And that aspect of the practice is it's so valuable, I've been working back, day by day, just doing a little bit of, over the last couple of months anyway. I found that the practice wavered a bit, and then I had to like come back to it.
Mhm.
And now it's like it feels rhythmic again. It feels like natural. And there's every time I sit, I have this deep, profound appreciation, like especially towards the end, but oftentimes kind of throughout, where I'm just like, wow, it's amazing. It's so beautiful that this is here all the time,
Mhm.
like that I can, this experience, this calm, peaceful, joyful experience is here and available to me at all times. And so, I'm really working on post meditation practice in terms of remembering that same thing um, when I'm most sort of perturbed. So I'm watching. I've mentioned a therapist that I saw many many years ago, Carl Silver, before, and
Mhm.
he taught me to notice when I'm unhappy. And now I'm sort of bringing it all together because I'm noticing when I'm unhappy, just meaning like I'm off balance. Something's, like I'm tight or anxious or unhappy or whatever, apathetic, with something, right? Just noticing that. And then here's the key point for me now is remembering what it is that I want, remembering what it is that I'm striving towards. So I am like, oh, hey, look at this. I notice whatever, maybe like I'm not quite happy or whatever. I'm not okay right now. And then that was the first step, which is really important, really hard to do. But then, okay, great. Now I notice it. And then it's a remembering. What is it that I'm actually wanting here? What do I wish for my body, speech, and mind right now? Right.
Mhm.
And then what's so cool about it is that I can have a very similar meditative experience in those moments where things sort of like, it drops, right? And
Mhm.
there I can oftentimes find this spacious clarity, you know, and that it's there all the time, right? There's just these obscurations, there are these things that are in the way, and we can practice and practice and practice, right? Both in official, meditation and then also in post meditation. And that's where it's really starting to open things up where
Mhm.
it's incredibly practical and helpful, right? Like it just I can see how it yields to greater connection and greater harmony with other beings, not just others, myself and others, right? So my intrapersonal relationship, my relationship with myself, is improved by this because if I'm sitting here and something's not feeling quite right, I can do this and I'm like brought back, centered, right, grounded. And then if I'm interacting with somebody, especially if it's unpleasant, if there's something going on there that I find difficult, my tendency is to avert, or to disassociate or to avoid or to walk away or to argue or whatever. That's my sort of habitual pattern. But recognizing that that habitual pattern is not beneficial, has not ever been beneficial, at least not in recent memory, and then applying corrective antidotes to it,
Yeah.
incredibly helpful.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It sucks. Like sometimes I'm just like, dang it, why is it like the negative patterns, the stuff that goes against my values? Why is that the automatic kind of like habitual pattern? And it's like, well, because I haven't really created an automatic positive habitual pattern. I've got to work towards it. And so that's really,
Yeah,
I like what you said about, well, first we got to notice, that's like the first step. If we're not noticing, we're just, ignorant and we're
yeah.
stuck. We're stuck in, these unhelpful and unsatisfying states of mind. Um, but so yeah, noticing and then regardless of how I'm feeling, still choosing to move in the direction of my values because you're re-identifying, well, what are my values? What am I trying to do with my body, speech, and mind? And for why, what purpose? And so
Hmm.
I like that because it's actually really hard to change sometimes how we're feeling. Um, but if we can remember like what our direction is, we can keep moving towards it, regardless of if we're still feeling crappy. Um, and usually that will change, like that will change because of our behavior, Um,
That's just it. What you're
yeah,
saying, Jack, is instrumental here because I've tried really hard to push these things away or push them
yeah,
down or to try to force them to change or whatever, and none of that stuff works. But by simply engaging in the right sort of disciplined approach with my body, speech, and mind, by doing these things, by actually practicing them, then without being attached to either the doing or the outcome or any of that, just this sort of like, no, like, okay, in this moment, this is what I do, right? Correct it. Then the natural outcome tends to be one that has sort of sufficiently dealt with the underlying problem itself.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny being like doing therapy with folks. Um there's no magic bullet, there's not like a, special kind of like activity or, set of words that are going to cure people. It really is like do what matters to you and actually do it.
Oh,
Like you just
actually
gotta
do it.
actually
No.
just do, and it sucks because like it kind of boils down to that. Like, yep, just do it. And so it's like I think motivation is really the hardest part. It's like noticing and then actually being motivated to do it. But it sounds like, if you really kind of steep yourself, remind yourself, like, no, this is important to me. If this is what my teachers are telling me, this is when I reflect on my past experience, I can remember like that's it. And so yeah, finding ways to motivate ourselves why we're doing this is so important too.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I think is kind of cool about this, the current sort of practice for me, the sort of post-meditation practice, if you will, is that what I'm beginning to see really is this relationship between my actions and the quality of life around me, and
Mm,
that how dramatically things change and how quickly things change. When like I can just apply a little, it's just moment by moment, it's just little, like oftentimes not like it's weird because there's this resistance to practice, but that resistance is far more complicated and energy intensive than
Yeah.
the lack of resistance. By not resisting, it's easier, right? It's
Yeah.
actually a hell of a lot simpler, right? To stop all of the crazy madness and all the thoughts and expectations and beliefs and all of that. It's far simpler to just let that sort of pass on by like a cloud or whatever, right? And deal with a situation that's right in front of you, which tends to be moment by moment quite simple, right?
Mm.
And I
Hmm.
think that's the part that's kind of like I don't know, it's eye-opening for me. We were talking about boredom before, and I find that what I am again and again and again surprised by is that yeah, it's because like I'm oftentimes personally overcomplicating things because of my desire for excitement or complexity or newness or whatever.
Yeah.
When yeah, I want, oh, give me that magic word or give me that magic pill or give me that magic whatever. I'm gonna find it. It's out there somewhere. No, turns out it's just diligently doing what everybody else should be doing too.
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
for sure. Ooh,
Yeah, that's enough
heartfelt
about me,
people.
Jack. Tell me a little bit about you and your practice. What's going on with you?
Yeah, I'm tired. I feel really tired today. But as far as my training, well, one kind of like um post meditation activity I did yesterday was after work, I went to this what's called a death cafe. Have you heard about this?
I think you told me about them,
Did I?
maybe.
Okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
basically just like a get together of people who want to explore their
Mhm.
experiences and feelings about death. And it's a, kind of like a non-hierarchical, like just group of people just hanging out and talking. And it was really nice. Um, I don't have a ton of experiences with death yet in this lifetime, but the things that were coming up in conversation felt really familiar. Um, and I think, we're kind of experiencing little deaths all the time and, not getting things that I want or being frustrated by things or, things falling apart in various ways. And someone brought up this just I was so struck by this activity that this woman had tried in a different kind of like training. She was doing a training in hospice. And the training was that you write down this kind of list of categories. There's like 5 categories. One is people, one is like food, the other is like places, and a couple other things. And you're instructed to take away one of those things from each category. Like, which one would you be able to give up? And in each category, sorry, I should go back. Each of those is your favorites. List 5 of your favorites of each of these 5 categories. And so then you're instructed to, give one of them up. So which one would you give up?
Like
And
permanently give up?
yeah. And then again, you have to do it again a second time. And
Wow.
then the final one is you have to pick randomly and you can't look. And she said that when she picked from the people category, it was her best friend,
Hmm.
and she was like, I can't, I can't. And it was so amazing because it's like just seeing this on a piece of paper, not real life at all. Just imagining having to give up this person was like so deeply profound for her. And so I was thinking about that. It really just like struck me. And I was like, yeah, that's I feel that way too. Like I feel like, no, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for,
Mm-mm.
letting go of any of those people or, even favorite foods,
Yeah.
or places that I want to go or have been. And so that was a really interesting exercise and just thinking about attachment and death and that, these things they're coming. And yeah, not to go like into despair, but to greet it,
Mm.
I want to be there for it. I don't want to deny or push away. Um, so yeah, that felt really good to hear from
Yeah.
people and just kind of, resonate with one another on like, gosh, this is hard, life is
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
hard.
Especially this part of it. Just
Yeah.
I don't even have the piece of papers in front of me and I'm not even doing the exercise, but just thinking about giving up the piece of paper. Like I'm
Yeah.
not talking about the actual, like just sitting here with what you're talking about, I can feel that like
Yeah.
no, not
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess in the activity, you're imagining that you're someone who's in hospice. And so maybe the person that you're losing is someone who like they can't make it in time, so you're not going to see them again, right? Or you're not going to have like your favorite food ever again, or it was just like so like, okay, wow, yeah. And we're all, and all in some ways going to be coping with such enormous losses, but can we greet them?
I love that you went to this. I'm kind of curious. I'm going to look and see if there's any around me.
Yeah.
Because that sounds super healthy. Way
Yes.
better. I sometimes am like, where can I find a charnel ground here?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's not the way that we do things in America. And so, like there's this part of me that sort of like, I don't know, because I am like you, I sort of uh I guess you could say I romanticize or intellectualize the experience. And
Yeah.
so even when I try to really be with it, like meditate on impermanence and whatnot, even if it feels like I'm getting close, there's a part of me that's like, I know this isn't what it's like. I know that this is just like a an image of what is. It's not even close to what the real deal is, right? And to be with other people and to hear experiences and their feelings, like you were saying, to sort of just resonate with it and to intentionally be there, like you were doing like a group meditation on impermanence.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's really
Sure.
wonderful. I'm gonna
Yeah.
try to find one near me. It sounds really healthy and I can see how it might be heart opening.
Yeah, definitely. It was. And I was surprised because I didn't necessarily feel as I entered the building that I was like in an emotional place, but I really like my heart was opened by a lot of what people were sharing. Um,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go back. So
I was gonna say, are you gonna do it again?
I'm
Sounds
gonna
like
do it
it.
again. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh. What compelled you to do it in the first place?
You know, my close friend who's also my roommate has had an immense amount of loss in the last 8 years. And so she's very skilled, I think, in understanding grief, from experience. And she also is very good about just talking about it. And so I really admire that about her. And um, so she and I think, started looking that Death Cafe thing up a while back, but just never went. So it's all interdependence, I
Yeah.
wouldn't have thought about it,
No.
if not for my buddy. But yeah, I super recommend. And there's also one thing that someone brought up that I'm definitely going to bring up to my family is I think it's called the Conversation Project. I wrote it down somewhere, but the Conversation Project is talking about like end of life
Hmm.
wishes, and kind of setting up, um, yeah, your end of life needs and desires, so that your family actually knows what to do. Because a lot of people get in, you know, unexpected situations or even just get old and don't think about it. And
Hmm.
then there's like all these questions at the end of life about like,
Yeah.
what do you actually want? And are you even, conscious to share that with
Yeah.
us? And so yeah, we need to
Yeah.
do that. I think
It's
it's
true, and the reason we need to do that is not for us,
yeah,
right? Other than our own peace of mind, but it really is for the well-being of our loved ones,
yeah,
because it's going to happen. We
yeah,
don't know when it's going to happen. It could happen any minute. Um, and we want to save them the anguish of all the uncertainty and the so like I'm noticing this. My former mother-in-law is in hospice right now. She just entered hospice,
Yeah,
and she has pretty advanced severe dementia, so she can't express anything at this point about her wishes or desires. um and the family itself is already in crisis, just talking about plans for funerals or what
yeah,
to do with the body and things like that, like it's already causing incredible friction within the
yeah,
family, right? A lot of difficulty. Whereas if she'd had that conversation with them before and it was well documented, then everybody would just be like, this is what mom wanted. End
yeah,
of discussion.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it saves a lot of grief and confusion and questions about like, did we did it do it right, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
thanks, Jack. I really appreciate
Sure.
that you sharing your experience with that. And also, it's yeah, I want to check it out myself. So
Yeah.
maybe some
Yeah.
other people will too. Talk about interdependence, huh? Like it's
Hell yeah.
spreading out
Yeah.
from your roommate, from your friend.
Yeah, right, right.
Mm.
Yeah, gotta talk, gotta talk. Okay,
All right.
I think we gotta train now.
Let's do a little training. Let
Got
me
some
pull
Lojong?
up the random Lojong slogan page here, and we'll do a little bit of training.
Sounds good. Oh,
Hmm.
when this one comes up, I really enjoy it. Don't expect gratitude. Gosh, what a bummer.
Hmm.
So I need to remind myself of this one. I love it though. Okay. Generally speaking, when we are too desirous of something in life, we're less likely to attain it. Dang it. Success seems to increase in direct proportion to the diminution of our desires. The same logic applies to our need for recognition. We might want to be appreciated and respected, but we have only a limited ability to influence how other people respond, and we can't make somebody show us gratitude any more than we can force someone to love us.
Hmm.
Charlie Cabgon, look at this. What a cool Tonka. All
Who
these
is this?
standing deities that
Yeah.
found are so cool. They're unusual.
Padmapani. Bodhisattva Padmapani.
Cool. Beautiful. Well,
Uh,
this one, don't expect gratitude. I wonder if it's the same one as don't expect applause. Do you think?
I mean, I think it's a similar sentiment, you
Yeah,
know. I I- I'm not into the horoscope stuff or anything, but I do think it's funny that one of the characteristics of Leos, which I am one, is expecting gratitude.
oh,
It's there's
interesting.
this, yeah, and so it does actually seem to be sort of a theme in my life where when I whatever, when I do something, I want that applause. I
Yeah,
want that gratitude. There's this deep sense of wanting recognition for my accomplishments,
yeah, yeah,
And so I find it really challenging when I'm like, here I am, I'm doing all this hard work and I've been doing it for years. I meditate, I really do a lot of mind training and whatever, and the people around me are like, you're dumber than meaner whatever than ever, right? Like very, I mean, okay, it's not entirely true. There are times where people are like, wow, Daniel, you've really changed, like for the better. It's good, whatever. But that's not for the most part, right? A lot of times people are like, what, especially close family and friends are just like, yeah, now you have this extra layer, like you're a Buddhist, or whatever. Yeah, like, oh my God. And I'm like, you don't understand how hard it is, and I'm doing this for your benefit.
Give
Yeah,
me flowers, give me praise.
that's right. That's right. Like, don't you see how hard it is? But no, no, truly, I get what they're talking about here. There is this deep desire for appreciation and respect for what we're doing here. And
Yeah,
it's a lot better to not be worried about that, not be thinking about that. It's a hell of a lot easier to just drop all of that and just keep practicing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Another thing that Lama says often is, like we don't own it, like we can't own bodhicitta. It's not ours, but
No.
it is our inherent nature. We just don't own it. And so, expecting all this appreciation coming back towards us for just doing, what actually is, our nature. Yeah, we can't expect that. And a lot of times people are going to be even like annoyed with us too. So I don't know. I definitely have that thing, Daniel, with like moral desert as well, where I'm kind of like, well, so and it's totally, I think the Christian in me, which is
Hmm.
like, if I do good and I do all my prostrations and my mantras, then I'm gonna go to whatever kind of Buddhist heaven there is,
Hmm.
and that's my moral dessert. That's if I do this, then that. And so I think that's where I expect gratitude, which I guess if we're thinking karmically, like in some ways that like is happening, but yeah, not expecting that from others.
I feel like I need to add a little caveat here,
Uh,
or maybe a modification to point number 56 here. I really feel like I think it's fair to say, don't expect gratitude from others, right? Because
yeah,
certainly, while, like I was saying at the outset, while it's unlikely that I'm going to get it if I'm looking for it, all right, if I really am grasping and needing it, it's unlikely that I'm going to get that praise, applause, and gratitude from other people. Um, if I'm doing this, I can be grateful myself. Right?
yeah,
Like I
yeah,
can certainly be incredibly grateful for what's happening, even if it's difficult and nobody else even sees it. And in fact, if other people, not just don't see it, but counter it to some degree.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Well, I think that that is part of right effort is seeing our good qualities and continuing to cultivate them. So
that's
yeah,
right. Seeing
yeah,
our good qualities is what it's all about.
yeah, for sure. All right. Well, great. This has already been a lovely conversation.
Hmm.
And I always felt like I start this conversation, I'm like, I'm really tired and I kind of want to just lay down, please. And then I'm like, actually, I really want to have this conversation with you. This is wonderful.
Oh, thanks for
But
taking one for the team, Jack.
oh gosh, you're welcome. But so apathy is such an interesting topic for tonight. And like you were saying, we kind of like subconsciously are in this like series of um mental afflictions. Like what have we talked about doubt a couple
Hmm.
weeks ago.
Yep.
Last week we talked about boredom.
Yep.
And this week we're talking about apathy. And
Yeah.
I felt like, there's in some ways they're kind of interrelated.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
but apathy, I feel like it's such a sneaky, dangerous state of mind. Because sometimes I can't even really tell necessarily when I've
Uh-huh.
slipped into apathy. Like boredom somewhat feels like obvious to me, where I'm like, like I don't want to
Right.
be here. I'm tired of this. I just want something fun to do. But apathy is like, um, I can slip into some like real, like just not caring about others, not caring about, my path. And it's pretty subtle. I don't know. How does it show up for
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, without a doubt. I couldn't agree more about what you said. The boredom is pretty evident, or at least I thought it was. It does have these subtleties to it, so it's not always super apparent, but doubt is very clear to me when I'm
Mm,
experiencing doubt. Um, And I think that the relationship between doubt and boredom and apathy, I feel like doubt and boredom are precursors. Like they kind of like might show up first, and then if they're not um addressed properly, then it can give way to apathy. I feel like apathy is sort of like it's the festered version of it. Like it's
Yeah,
gotten deeper somehow. It's gone systemic or something, right?
totally. Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it. Yeah, I also found when I was reflecting on, where apathy comes from for me, this kind of like lack of enthusiasm, lack of care, that it's a little bit of a fear response.
Oh, hell yeah.
You know what
Absolutely
I
it
mean?
is.
Like,
Yeah.
uh, when you think about fight, flight, or
Yeah.
freeze, apathy for me kind of shows up when I feel like there's nothing that can be done.
Yep.
Or I just think that there's nothing that can be done. And so I'll just get a little bit like, well, fuck it, like
That's
I
right.
don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
There's nothing I can do anyways. There's no way that I can influence the situation.
That's right.
Or I am thinking that way. And so, like why even do like why even put my energy towards this?
Yeah, and so I've had that, I've struggled with these characteristics my whole life in all affairs. But what I find particularly troublesome is that, since I've really engaged in spiritual practice, it's like I've got new toys to layer into my apathetic stance.
Mm.
Meaning that sometimes I take these concepts and I skew them to serve apathy's function. So
Oh, tell me more. This is sounding right up my alley.
yeah, so what'll happen is I'll have some, like I just don't care. Like that feeling, no, it just doesn't. And why am I, like there a little bit of doubt. Why am I doing this? Am I really, is this, is enlightenment a thing? Can I really be a benefit of that kind of benefit to others? Do I really make an impact on the world, right? Like my thoughts begin to go like that. And then I'll be like, man, I've been doing this for countless lifetimes, right? Since beginningless time, I've been doing this, and so has everybody else. And,
Yeah.
Shakyamuni showed up and like did his teaching thing, and like there's all these other people and teachers, but like they're just teaching, and the world just keeps on doing its thing, and people are still lost in samsara. I'm still lost in it, and like I'll begin to think like that, right? And then it's not so much like a doubt about the efficacy of the instructions. It's not like that. I don't think it shows up. There might be an element of that, but it's actually more along the lines of like, and so what? Who cares? Why would I? Okay, so what? Enlightenment. All right, great. So what? Striving for, highest realization of or realization of my highest potential and what? No, oh, who cares? All
Yeah.
right. And it
Yeah.
starts like there's these elements that begin to come in there where I start to like kind of twist the truths around, right? Oh, it's all impermanent. It's
Yeah,
always
I'm gonna
moving.
die anyways.
I'm gonna die anyway. You know what? There's not a personal self here anyway. Who is it that said that they were going to commit to these practices? It wasn't me. It was that guy a while ago, or there's that previous fella,
Yeah.
right? It's not even me, right? So that it gets skewed. It gets
Yeah.
really like it's really easy. Apathy has this like really powerful, I feel like way of like grabbing everything in, right?
Yeah.
It turns everything gray.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, I totally feel that. Yeah, it's such a sneaky state of mind. How it can just take everything in. And it's also, yeah, it's just like there's a kind of solace, I think, in apathy, where it's like, oh, good. Like I don't have to, I
Yeah.
don't have to work at it anymore because like just fuck
Just don't
it.
care, right? You know,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, isn't apathy sort of the goal anyway here with all this
Yeah.
renunciation and equanimity and avoiding
Right.
attachment and wanting to be peaceful and contented? Like I often the thought that occurs to me sometimes is like, I should just go disappear into a cave, meditate, and die quietly. And that would be the best contribution I could make to the world, is to just disappear and leave no trace, sort of, you know? Like it's like, oh, and then you know what, Jack? I feel so good when I come to that realization because then I'm like, I don't have to do anything. I mean, I got to find the cave and all that shit, but like I don't have to do anything else. I just have to stop
Yeah,
because isn't that what this is all about? And
yeah,
that is yet another incredibly distorted view.
right, right. Yeah, so how interesting that, we can twist anything into, even just it's such excellent teachings of what really, when I think about it, is the exact opposite of
It,
apathy, right? It
it
really
is.
is the exact
Right.
opposite. And yet we can twist it. And I think, part of that is like a little bit of Western Dharma racism, something, other
Yeah.
where it's kind of like we have this view of Eastern, practices being like just, oh, we're just so patient and calm, and that's it. It's a very kind
Mhm.
of one note type of thing. And so part of that, I think, is our our kind of Western perception, um and which is wrong, because if there's anyone in the world who is more like active and engaged than my teachers, I don't think I would, that
Yeah.
person would be, ruling the world. And so, yeah, apathy is nowhere to be found in Dharma practice. And in
Mm-mm.
fact, it's quite a poison.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's the exact opposite, right? It's like it's like the closest thing to kind of Walking Dead as I think
Mhm.
I can get without turning into a zombie, right? Because it totally cut, like when I experience these sort of familiar apathetic wins, if you will, or whatever, I am so sort of like dead to the world, right? I don't
Mhm.
have a responsibility towards it. I actually don't even have a relationship to it because there's no, nothing I'm going to do is going to change anything. It's all for naught, whatever, that kind of mentality. And so it's like cutting off, right? Putting up a barrier between myself and everything else. And so it really makes this misperceived sense of self way bigger, way more important. It's incredibly self-centered, right? Apathy is, because we're losing sight of that bigger picture. We're losing sight of that interconnectedness and the responsibility that we have in every given moment to the whole situation, the entirety of the situation. Like we
Yeah.
really do actually have a role to play in all of this, and it requires our active, engaged participation. And apathy blocks it, prevents
Yeah.
all of that.
Yep. It sure does. I watched this talk. I see in your notes here you watched the same talk as by Venerable Thupten Chodron from Sravasti Abbey.
Wasn't that a great talk?
Yeah, yeah, the antidote to apathy. And it was so interesting. And I'm not sure if she was reading from a text, but she read this quote: "What is it that makes one lose everything one ever wanted?" So what is the factor that makes you lose, this incredible like bodhicitta and, motivation? And the answer was dissipating apathy. Dissipating apathy that fails to persist in any task. And I really had to pause it and think, like, what is that? So apathy alone can make me lose my, entire path.
Right.
That's pretty intense. Um, I have to be really mindful, watchful. Um, and I do have this kind of like a little bit of laziness that she described in the talk
Hmm.
too, a little bit of like kind of carelessness sometimes
Hmm.
about my practice, where I can, sometimes I'll go days and days in my shamatha training where I'm not applying antidotes. I'm not really looking at, the
Hmm.
state of my mind. I'm just kind of, clicking the timer and
Yeah.
waiting.
Yeah.
um,
It's
and so
mechanical.
it's very mechanical. And so I think that's where apathy can show up is a
Yeah.
little bit laziness, in my training.
It is laziness,
Yeah.
so it undermines our effort on the path, right? And what I found so interesting about what Tupten Chodron was talking about, it was very specific the way she phrased the answer to the question, what is it that makes one lose everything one ever wanted? The answer was not just apathy, right? It was dissipating apathy that fails to persist in any task. And I was like, why did she feel the need to say dissipating
Yeah, what is the
apathy?
dissipating
What
about?
exactly
Yeah.
is that? And I, oh my
To
God,
dissolve.
when I was like thinking about it, and then I got some notes on it, I asked Chat GPT, what was she talking about, right? So I know, sorry, whatever. Anyway, so as I was like thinking about this, it became very clear. So what it's very similar to the experience that I have where, I there's this incredible enthusiasm in the beginning, high energy, strong intention, lots of motivation. I'm like, I'm gonna do that. I can do it. Lots of faith, I'm gung ho, right? And then as I continue and it gets harder and steeper and more difficult and there's obstacles and whatever, then then there's this dissipation, right? There's this gradual sort of like erosion. It begins to just sort of like some things start to fade, like my motivation becomes a little less clear, my effort becomes diminished, right? And then that's where there's like that's the where the doubt and the boredom start to creep in, and then leading into this sort of like general apathetic state. And so it's this gradual erosion of our effort.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is like it's kind of hard to track, which is what we were saying at the beginning was like, it's you don't really know that you're approaching it until you're kind of in it, at least for me. And so I can see
Right.
how that dissipating quality is like, that gradual kind of like moving away from our motivation and getting bored with what we're doing.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, okay. And I'm curious. We can talk about what Thupten Chodron shared here too, but uh, any antidotes that you've discovered to apathy? Like, how do you get around this
It,
just incredible obstacle?
yeah. I would say help from a qualified teacher is of paramount importance, right? So I'll tell you. So our teacher, Lama Yoshi Jimpa, has he's noticed in me this tendency, right? And has pointed it out. He assigned a talk on right effort a while ago, right? And I haven't learned my lesson yet. Yeah, I still still dealing with these challenges. And a couple of darshans ago, I was talking to him and I was asking for some advice. I said, man, there's just, like there's such a wealth of Dharma material out there, and I read things, and then I move on to something else, and then I read a little bit of this, and then I think about something else, and then I listen to a random Dharma talk, and and like I just it's not, it gets muddy, like
Mhm.
even though I really enjoy it, it's fun and interesting, it gets really muddy, and that kind of confusion that comes from that, from the lack of structure and just sort of jumping into it willy-nilly, is something that can lead to doubt, can lead to sort of a lack of faith. It can eventually give way to this apathetic condition. And so what
And
he
can I
suggests,
ask, do you think it's because you're just kind of like skating the surface? And is that what leads to apathy? Is that it's kind of like, well, you know, well, for one, there's so much. How could I possibly, get everything? Um, and also like, well, I can kind of just, skirt the surface of this and not have to really dedicate myself to real deep knowledge, which takes effort. Is that any of that? What's
yeah, I think yeah, yes, there's that. I think that's a component of it. I think the other part is that this is a path. There is actual structure, there is a way, right? So we are yogis in the sense that other people have come before us. and have told us what worked for them, have written it down, or spoken it or whatever, have taught it. And there's like a method to all of this. There is actual structure. And what happens is when I just jump in willy-nilly, it's okay. There's a little bit of just like exploration. I'm not benefiting from that structure, right?
Mm.
And so I get a little lost, right? Where like I'm having fun. The way I explained it to Llama was I was like, like I really appreciate the labyrinth, and I've been hanging out in the labyrinth, exploring it for a while now. And I get what you're saying. Sometimes I'm closer to the center, sometimes I'm further away, all of that. And I can appreciate that. But I just want some freaking steps, just like I'm tired of this meandering path. I get that it's important, right? It's an important part of all of this. I just want to like make some steady, regular progress, right? Without this sort of this quality. And he goes, "Oh, okay, it's time to study the Lam Rim."
Mm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the Lam Rim, the stages of the path, like that right there, step by step instructions. I think that I can benefit from it because it's, again, simpler. It's
Yeah.
easier. I don't have to, there doesn't have to be all this conceptualization. There doesn't have to be this me pretending like I know any, like, no, just read it, practice it, do it in this fashion, in this systematic way. That's one thing actually that Thupten Chodron mentioned towards the end of her talk, right? Was that it can be really problematic for us when we kind of go on our own way, go in our
Yeah.
own way without having some guidance from a qualified teacher. And in this case, the qualified teacher for me is both my Lama, right? And also the Lamrim. And I'm only just now getting into it. I'm reading Pabanka Rinpoche's book, Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand. And
Awesome.
just really getting started. I'm in the preliminaries now, and I'm looking forward to it. There's a part of me that's like, that relief. Okay, so that relief that you're talking about with apathy, where there's this like,
Mm.
I don't have to do anything sort of thing. What I'm beginning to sort of sense with the Lam Rim is this, oh, I can get that same kind of relief, right? It's a similar kind of relief where it's like I don't have to think so much. I
Yeah.
don't, I mean, like, I don't have to overly complicate this whole thing, right? Like, I can just follow the instructions, just do what it says, right? And then I can watch as the results develop. It's just stairs
Yeah.
instead of a labyrinth.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I love that idea. So instead of the labyrinth now, okay, stairs, one stair
Stairs.
at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Step
Yeah.
up into another labyrinth.
Yeah, right.
Right? Because they're both like that was one thing that Lama stressed to me. He was like, labyrinth is very important, right? That's where you get the width, right? You get
Mhm.
this sort of there's this sort of wider exposure, but then you need to go deeper, or further in a
Really
specific
cool.
direction.
Yeah. Huh. That's really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
thanks for sharing that. Yeah, there is something about being able to break things down, like how incredible the Lamrim is at breaking down the stages of the path, and you can kind of see a little bit where you're at, and maybe sometimes that's where the labyrinth can be part of the Lamrim, is that you can kind of move through the Lamrim a little bit, at least. And I talked to a qualified teacher, but I've done actually Thupten Children's meditations on the Lam, which I highly recommend. I think they're on SoundCloud. And uh, sometimes I'll jump ahead and I'll sit with some things farther along in on the path. Or I'll go back, to the very basics, the foundations. And that's really cool.
You go
But
up and down the steps.
go up and down the steps. Yeah.
You're doing the Stairmaster approach to this workout.
Right, right. Well, that's the kind of labyrinthine, I think,
Yeah.
aspect of the long rim, is that you always got to come back to the foundation. Um, but yeah, I think another part that's an antidote for me is similar in that if I can create and cultivate rather um, contentment for where I'm at on the path. Um, and part of that is, I've said it a million times, I'll say it a million more times. It's like, looking back, right, to when I first started and seeing, yeah, it is totally different. There's things that I'm seeing again that I
Hmm.
know I'm frustrated about, but like I'm really, really developing some competence. And so gaining some encouragement from that and contentment in just creating the causes, as I think is another Tupten children recommendation is like,
Yeah,
we're gonna see the results. Like if if we really trust, karma, then we are like we can have faith in that we're gonna see the results of the positive, action and energy and effort that we're putting
that's
towards the path.
right. That's right.
Yeah,
It's like I was telling my daughter today. She and I have always gone, not always, but for well over a year now, we've gone to the gym on a very regular basis during the school year. Summertime threw a wrench into things, changed the schedule around, and we
yeah,
found it quite difficult actually. We still kept going, but it was really hard to, with vacations and disruptions in schedule and stuff, to continually make it like we had during the school year. So the routine wasn't
mhm,
there. So it was harder. It required a lot more effort just to get there. And then I had some like foot problems and whatever, made it so that I couldn't work out quite the way that I had. And so we went to the gym today, and then we were reflecting on it. She said, "Oh, I'm so glad school's about to start, which means that our gym routine is going to fall back in and it'll just be regular." And I was
yeah,
like, "Yeah, but think about the value. I mean, like the what we did over this summer was really important, that we didn't give up. Yes, it was
yeah,
harder. Yes, it was less certain. Yes to all of that. But there's definite results from doing that go way beyond just whatever the physical benefits of going to the gym are, because we kept up that pattern, that behavior of continually going. And that's why, it's really important for us to, like you were saying, to develop some contentment and some gratitude for what we've already done, and to have some trust to watch and be like, yeah, this stuff works even when I can't see it working, right?
yeah,
Like the
yeah,
fruits, even if there's no fruit on the tree, the process of making fruit is happening.
yeah.
I just got to keep exerting myself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. And then just lastly, cultivating joyous effort, which I think was in the talk, just so important. And there's steps to that. She mentioned the 4 steps to cultivating joyous effort. Um, through generating a positive outlook and avoiding distorted perceptions, through aspiration, like recognizing the benefits of what we're doing, through mindfulness, like you were saying at the beginning, like remembering your intentions for your body, speech, and mind. And then pliancy, developing, flexibility in your body, speech, and mind.
Yeah.
And so there's steps. How generous, right,
I
and
know,
compassionate
right?
our teachers are, and that they're like, we know this is hard. Let's break it down. We're gonna do it. You're gonna be fine. Just follow the steps. Do what you can,
Yeah. Oh, you need it simpler? Okay, we'll break it down even simpler.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
no problem.
They're so kind, right?
Truly, truly kind and generous.
Well, friends, this has been a really great conversation. I appreciate it. You always lift my spirits.
Thank you so much, Jack. I hope that you get a good night's sleep tonight. I hope you have sweet dreams and wake up tomorrow feeling super duper rested.
Thanks so much. Yeah, and maybe I'll see you on Insight Timer.
Okay.
You gonna be
Ooh.
there early?
Now I might.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
maybe I'll see you.
All right. All
I'll
right.
be there at like 5.
5. Oh my God, you're crazy. Okay. Well, I might see you.
Oh, and just a reminder, I think on Monday is coming up the full moon, right? And so
That's right. We are doing that,
um
and you were going to send me a link to something,
I'm gonna
right?
send you a link. Okay, I'll do that. I'll do
Okay.
that.
Awesome. No, that sounds good. I'm looking forward to the full moon practice. That's going to be great. And also next Tuesday we will not be back. I'm going to be
Okay,
gone. I'm
that's
going to
right.
be gone on a work trip. So we'll be back in 2 weeks time.
Sounds good. All
All
right, my
right.
friend. Take care.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Bye,
Jack. Bye,
everyone.
everybody.